Hi there, Bruce Simpson here. Pretty serious subject to talk about today if you live in America. If you live in the United States of America, suddenly the FAA has taken your hobby from you, or at least very important aspects of your hobby have been taken from you by a change in interpretation of the rules. And that's something you should all be very concerned about, and you should actually be getting your pen and paper out or your keyboard fired up and making comment on it, and if you don't already know, the FAA has chosen to reinterpret the regulations regarding model aircraft. And there aren't any actual laws as such about model aircraft. There's an advisory which gives advice, you should do this, you should do that. Not you must, but you should. And to date, the actual sort of control of model flying has been taken up by the AMA, and they're a community-based organisation recognised by the FAA. So the FAA has said, well, we're really quite busy actually, we've got big planes to worry about, so we'll let you guys take care of the model side of things, and off you go, so we can get on with drinking our coffee and eating our cookies. And that's worked fine for years, but suddenly technology has come along, and now model aircraft can do things that no one ever dreamed of when that arrangement was first mooted, first set up. Previously model aircraft, you had radio control and you flew around in circles over a field in the countryside, and that was great. What could possibly go wrong? Full-size aircraft flew way up high, models flew low. Full-size aircraft flew in certain areas, models flew out in the country. It was all straightforward and easy. There was no problems, no risk to anybody, and everyone was happy. But technology has changed that. Now we have FPV, and we have long-range radio equipment. Now people are flying FPV models miles, tens of miles away from the launch point. They're flying way up above the clouds, an area that is in an area of the airspace that's used by commercial flights. They're flying over towns and cities, and people are flying them from parks because they're electric and they're quiet, and you don't have the same constraints and they're small. So suddenly technology has changed the face of the hobby in a way that the FAA is not best pleased about. Now, the FAA has been working with the AMA to try and address some of these issues, especially the one of FPV, and the AMA came up with a set of rules to try and make sure that FPV was safe, and one of them was that if you're flying FPV with your glasses on, you've got to have a spotter. And that's a good common sense rule, because it means that there's someone looking out to make sure that you're not going to fly into a full-size aircraft or some other problem isn't going to occur. It means there's always a set of eyes on the model. That's great, that's common sense, it's reasonable, no problems with that. Unfortunately, the FAA has come along and said, no, we're not happy with that. It's not good enough. It's not good enough because, we want the pilot's eyes on the model at all times. Not just a spotter. In fact, you don't need a spotter. Believe it or not, they're not saying you need a spotter. You have to have pilot's eyes on the plane at all time. So if you're flying FPV and you've got a set of these, as of this week, the FAA considers you to be breaking their rules. They consider you to be a threat to the national airspace if you put these FPV glasses on while you fly your model. It does not matter if you have a spotter there looking at the model, clearly being able to see if there's any full-size aircraft around. Nope, that's not good enough. The pilot must always be looking at the model. And you've got to ask yourself, what the hell what are they smoking at the FAA? I mean, it's crazy. I can see what they're trying to achieve. Now, as I say, one of the problems is we've got people flying these FPV models in ways that aren't particularly safe. I've mentioned situational awareness before. If you're flying 10 miles away, you can't hear if there's a plane approaching your model. If you're flying within a visual range so that you can see the model, or your spotter can see the model, then it's easy to tell if there's a full-size plane coming along. You can hear it, and your spotter can see it, so you can take evasive action. Now, if you're 10 miles away, 20 miles away, that just doesn't work. Nobody can see the model, the spotter can't see the model, and you can't hear through your FPV system if there's a Cessna 172, 500 yards away, bearing down on you. Also, you've got that little narrow field of view, and so you can't tell if there's a plane bearing down on you from behind, and the pilot of the plane can't see you until it's too late. So there is a safety issue there. Now, having said that, the safety issue can be mitigated, can be completely eliminated if we simply impose some really straightforward, simple rules. Full-size aircraft, for example, are not allowed to fly below 500 feet unless they're landing or taking off or in an area that's designated for low-flying manoeuvres. Model aircraft, therefore, if they stay below 400 feet, then never the twain shall meet, as long as they're not flying near an airfield. So you take your models, you say don't fly near an airfield, and fly below 400 feet, and the problem disappears. If a 172 does smack into your FPV model while you're flying at 350 feet, then it's not your fault, it's their fault, and therefore it's their problem. We can't regulate this. We can't make pedestrians wear crash helmets just because some crazy motorist might decide to drive on the footpath. That's not right. You make sure that you ping the motorist, not the pedestrian. So the FAA has looked at this and said, well, these planes, they're flying in the wrong place and they're flying too far away and there's no situational awareness, so we're just going to ban this whole FPV with video glasses concept. And that's ridiculous. I'll tell you how ridiculous it is. Look at this footage here. See this? These are the new 250 size multi-rotors that are becoming so very popular. So popular, in fact, you can't get motors, you can't get ESCs, you can't get the frames. Everybody's buying them because they're just so much damn fun. But look where they're being flown. Through trees. Now, I would defy any member of the FAA to tell me how it is possible to fly a full-size aircraft in the same piece of airspace. It's just not. It's impossible. So how the hell does wearing a set of these video glasses make your 250 size mini quad threading its way through the trees a threat to national airspace? It does not. And that shows how little the FAA regulators know about the things they're trying to regulate. They just don't have a bloody clue. And it's totally unfair and unjust that a sector of the hobby, the model flying hobby, should be penalised in a way that does nothing to improve the safety of the national airspace. And that's just one example. Now, there is a period of consultation available. You can comment on this or this change of interpretation by the FAA by going to the website, and there'll be a link in the description of this video, and having your say, voicing nicely, courteously, but assertively why you believe that this change is wrong, and cite this example of totally safe FPV. Totally safe. I mean, generally they're flying less than head height with these models. How the hell can that be a danger to any full-size aviation? So therefore, a blanket ban on the use of FPV glasses is ridiculous in the extreme. Now, the other thing, of course, is these changes by the FAA, they don't address the real problem. They don't, because the real problem, 9 times out of 10, it's some dickhead who's bought himself a Phantom 2, stuck his smartphone on the front of the transmitter there, and is flying over a crowd of people or on the flight path of an airfield. Now, he's quite legal still. What? Because he's not using video goggles, and because he can still see his multi-rotor as he glances up from his smartphone screen, well, he's fine. He's quite legal. I mean, how stupid is it? The FAA don't understand who the real problem is. And the real problem is not the keen amateur hobbyist, the people who fly these multi-rotors for fun. It's the people who buy these flying cameras in the form of the Phantom 2 or the Walkera QRX350 Pro or something like that. These are the people who don't have a clue about maintaining their equipment. They don't have a clue about the risks involved in flying over people. They don't have a clue about where they should and shouldn't fly. These are the people the FAA needs to be dealing to. But they're not. They're crushing the hobby instead. So again, the regulators don't have a bloody clue about the very thing they're trying to regulate. And as a result, they've come up with these cockamamie, stupid reinterpretations of the rules that do nothing to improve the safety of the national airspace. In fact, they've just made a huge mistake from another reason too. The perfect people to help police and make sure that the national airspace is safe are the very people that you've just criminalised. I'm talking about the people who fly these, these multi-rotors here, the hobbyists. These people, they don't want their hobby being ruined by dickheads with Phantom 2s flying, at airfields and flying over crowds. And they're the people you should be recruiting to say, hey, if you see this sort of thing happening, talk to the people doing it, tell them to stop, and if they don't, get hold of us and we'll fix them. They should be part of your enforcement team. You support the people who are responsibly flying these multi-rotors by FPV or any aircraft by FPV, and suddenly you've got a police force of tens of thousands of people all over the USA who'll be working for you, making the national airspace safer. But you haven't done that. You've criminalised them, you've alienated them, you've said, up you mate, and told them that if they do the thing that they enjoy, which is totally safe, you're going to ping them with a fine or possibly even throw them in prison. How stupid are you at the FAA? Honestly, you guys, you couldn't organise a piss up in a brewery when you look at it. So, and it's much the same here in New Zealand. I mean, the FAA has effectively come along and said any commercial use of a model aircraft makes it not a model aircraft. Suddenly it becomes a UAS, an unmanned aerial system, and you have to get a commercial operating authority to use it. So again, if say you're one of the ace team pilots, one of the flyers, someone flies aerobatics, because they cite aerobatics as an example in the FAA's statement. You go to a public event and you fly, you do a wonderful aerobatic performance, great, and it's perfectly safe and everyone's happy and you go home. No problems. If the next week they send you a check for $50 as a token of appreciation for your flying, suddenly that flight that was completely safe becomes a threat to the national airspace under the interpretation of the FAA. Suddenly, retrospectively, that flight that was safe is now a danger to other air users. How the hell does that work? Because you're not allowed to fly aerobatic demonstrations for money. So, oh, come on, you guys. You're making yourselves look so stupid by being so ridiculous in terms of these reinterpretations. And from the point of view of the FAA, you've got to realise that if you make yourself look too stupid, the judges are going to laugh you out of court again, just as they did in the Raphael Perker case. You're just digging a bigger hole for yourselves. You've really got to communicate with the groups that you're trying to control. And this actually is another worrying aspect of this whole thing. Now, previously, the AMA and the FAA presented themselves as working closely in unison, a good relationship, good working relationship, that ensured that everyone got on and everything was kept safe. But that's not the case anymore, is it? Clearly that's not the case, because when the FAA made this announcement about their change in interpretation, the AMA was as surprised as anybody. There was no consultation with the AMA. There was not even a heads up to the AMA. Suddenly, this close relationship isn't worth anything, because the FAA said, oh no, don't worry about the AMA, forget them, we'll just do what we want to do, and if they don't like it, well, that's tough cheese for them. That's exactly what seems to have happened. So now the AMA are on the back foot, they're on the out, and they're saying, well, we can't possibly support this rule because it's crazy. So that relationship, broken, damaged, severely damaged, because of the way the FAA has treated the AMA with such contempt, not even consulting with it, or not even advising it of what they were going to do. And remember, this isn't just something small, this is something that effectively criminalises the hobby industry in the USA. It is that bad. Now, there's models. I've got a Cine tank down there, designed and built in the USA, proudly made in the USA, great. And there's lots of other craft. I think the QAV multi-rotors, they're designed in the USA, and I've got a heap of products here that come from the USA that are designed and built in the USA model products. Well, I'm sorry, you guys, you're all criminals now, as far as the FAA is concerned, because anything you do with a model that is commercial turns that model into an unmanned aerial system. And you can't do anything with the UAS without the FAA's expressed approval, commercial operating authority, whatever. So you can't test your products anymore. You can't fly them to demonstrate them anymore, because you're doing it commercially. And that is now illegal. I mean, in one fell swoop, the FAA has destroyed an industry in America. That's how stupid this regulation is, all because you've got some dickheads flying Phantom 2s, in the approach path to an airfield, or banging into skyscrapers in New York City. Oh, it's the wrong people you're penalising. It's the wrong people you're shutting down. You're pointing your barrel of your gun in exactly the wrong direction. Even the ricochet is not going to hit the people you're interested in. You're just, I don't know. How do these people get a job if this is the calibre of the way they interpret and enforce their regulations? Unbelievable. But it's the same in New Zealand. It's the same in New Zealand. I mean, people have looked at me, some people have said, oh, you're just a troublemaker, you're just cantankerous, you're just grumpy, you're being unreasonable in your dealings with the aviation authorities here, the National Model Flying Body and CAA. And, well, no, what's happened now is that you guys in America are about to encounter the same sort of crap I've had to put up with. Here in New Zealand, believe it or not, I'm the only person in the entire world, I think, who has been deemed to have every single thing I do related to models considered to be commercial. I cannot go down to the local school on a summer's evening with a model aircraft and just fly around for the fun of it. Nope, that is commercial. I cannot do anything recreationally with models anymore. That's why I'm not allowed to join the National Model Flying Body, because they only deal with recreational model flyers, not commercial flyers. And everything I do, apparently, is commercial by declaration of Model Flying New Zealand and their sock puppets at CAA. And you guys, you've got the same thing now. FAA has unilaterally declared that all hobby companies in the USA are illegal, because if you're making something commercially, you're using something commercially and it's a model, it's actually not a model, it's an unmanned aerial system. That's the shit I've had to put up with for a couple of years. So now you guys, you might realise just how bad these bureaucrats can be. And you're getting it yourselves. So you really need to stand up for yourselves. And they say there's a 30-day period of comment when you're allowed to go in and voice your concerns and present a reasoned, rational, mature argument to counter the proposals of the FAA. You've really got to do that. Mention the mini-quad flying as the perfect example of that. You really have to. Why is that a danger to national airspace? Please explain. Please explain. Put the onus back on them to explain why. this is supposed to be a danger, because they're the ones that have said it. They have to prove it. That's, what can you do? That's all I can suggest. So, yep, you guys, if you don't act, you're going to find yourself, the hobby's going to be pretty wrecked. You'll be stuck with flying, Piper Cubs round circles over a paddock in the middle of nowhere. And if you blink, you've broken the law, because as soon as you lose visual contact between the pilot and the plane, you're flying a UAS, and that's illegal. So don't blink. Oh, God, it's just crazy, isn't it? Absolutely gobsmackingly crazy. Thank you for watching. Now, and get involved in the commentary, that the discussions that are going on. FPV Lab is a good place to go. There's a lot of discussion on FPV Lab, several threads running there. RC Groups has some discussions as well, although they tend to turn into mudslinging matches from my past experience. That's why I don't post on RC Groups anymore. But FPV Lab is a good one to go to. I think DIY Drones has had some discussion. And you can always put comments on the bottom of this video as well, putting your point of view, what you think. Maybe I'm just a grumpy old troll, I don't know. But hey, have your say. You've got to have a say in this. If you don't, then you just get what's dished up to you. And trust me, it's not going to be good. So there you go. Thank you for watching. Things are going from bad to worse in this hobby, all because of the dickheads with their Phantom 2 drones and their little smartphones and the things they do. So if you see someone doing this, if you see someone flying a Phantom drone inappropriately, go over to them and tell them to stop. And if they don't stop, call the FAA, take a photo, send it to the FAA. Let the FAA know that as a keen hobbyist, you're prepared to work on their side and that they shouldn't be alienating you. Well, got to go, work to do, back to the bench. Bye for now.
Whatever you're ready. I think a couple of... Oh, nice.
Oh,
it's a clean run.
Oh, yeah!
The upside is I got that one.
Start right here. Okay. Straight down that way. See the balloons on the pole?
Start on the ground.
Start on the ground.
Yep.
Straight down there. You can go left or right, but you've got to go around it and come back. You come back through this.
Through the gate.
Okay. As soon as you come through this, you hang a left, and then you go
right.
down around
the other left.
Down around the balloons there, and you come back. See, and then see this tree here.
Yeah.
That big tree.
Yeah.
You go clockwise around that. So you start on the right hand side.
Which big
go
tree
around
side?
to the left.
Left hand side.
And then once you come around that, back through this.
Ooh. Uh-oh, this ain't good, this ain't good.
Oh! Hey! 148. Oh, that's a little shallow here, isn't it? 1 second behind.